software that lasts and works as you expect.
Excellent. So why don't we jump in here? I think part of this conversation is that there's been a lot of promises about AI. There's been massive amount of capital plowed into AI. We were discussing Waymo here before. I don't even want to know how much money Google has spent on Waymo. And it's working well, but perhaps there's some issues. So maybe we'll begin with some examples where AI publicly failed and maybe we'll dig into what your customers have seen. So some of the examples I was thinking about when Gary and myself were discussing this panel was back to Waymo, the videos you can see from the parking lots in San Francisco where 20, 30 Waymos all blocking each other, honking at each other, and getting nowhere. I think that's a good example where there's still issues to be resolved. It doesn't mean that's not the future, it just means that we're struggling with it. Another good example is Grok, which is the XAI. And if you go to Grok and you ask Grok who's the biggest spreader of misinformation in the world, Grok, who's owned by Elon Musk, will return the answer, Elon Musk. If you're a product manager at Grok right now, you might not feel so good. And the last example is Gemini, where you can go and ask Gemini questions, of course, through the Google website. And you can ask Gemini, how many rocks should I eat every day? And Gemini will respond to you and say, you should eat 5 to 6 pebbles every day, according to a study, and that study doesn't exist. So maybe I'll hand it over to you, maybe more practical things. Where have you, throughout your career, or through your current job, seen AI fail, not give the right answers, or not perform as the customer expected?
Yeah, so I can talk about, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells here with the microphone, but I'll try. So the early days of our product, as an AI analyst, it should think about what questions are interesting to you in your data about your company. And the way we build it is there are agents in there that are very enthusiastic. There are agents in there that check the accuracy. Right? So it's a group of agents. One agent we didn't have in the beginning was a manager agent. And it's funny, right? I guess we think about humans working with each other, like managers in the workforce, and we were, I don't know, bright-eyed, detailed, thought managers were not needed in the AI space. There was an interesting example early on where the excited agent was like, hey, this is really cool data. We should bring this up at the board meeting. And then all the agents were starting up at the board meeting and talking to each other how excited they are to bring this to the board meeting. And they went on and created all these slide decks for the board meeting. There was no board meeting. This was not a task assigned where there was nobody stepping in saying, the task is not, there is no board meeting, let's get back to what we're supposed to do. Right? Because they're very enthusiastic, very excited, and they rub off on each other. So we had to put a manager in place, and now it's governed, and it's a really much more boring workplace, the inside of Orion, but customers don't need to see that.
Yeah, I think that example segues well into what I was thinking of, which is a core problem with AI. The term technically is ungrounded. AI can be ungrounded. What does it mean to be grounded? Is that it's actually rooted in reality. Because you can have things that are logical, make sense, but not grounded. Someone might say, oh, if you get out of bed on the left side, then you're a witch. That's logical. One thing leads to the other, but is it grounded in reality? It's not. So AI has this problem of being decoupled from things that are actually rooted in how the world works. So someone has to bring them back to that. And that's a key tenet in how we use AI. One example where this wasn't the case was, this is our internal use case. There is another company, unfortunately, also called Durable.co, or Durable.ai, who does AI website building, also unfortunate overlap there. And so we get inundated with people complaining. They must not have very good service, I don't know, because we get so many emails of people like complaining about the websites and doesn't work, can't log in, etc. So we built an agent with our platform that would help guide these people towards the right direction so we didn't have to answer these emails. And after I looked at what happened, in many cases, the agent started just leading these people on. Oh, open the settings and let's look at this. Let's try to solve your problem. Let's do this thing. And then, okay, I did this. What now? Now do this thing. And there were like 10 emails deep in this chain. And we had nothing to do with the problem to begin with. We were just leading these people on. Because the agent was like, oh, I give it a task, I'm going to be helpful. So then you're like, how do you, when you're building these agents, how do you ground them and evaluate them so when you're shipping, you're not just praying that it works, It's going to lead all these people who are already frustrated with their websites to be more frustrated because the support is likely to astray. So this is just one unfortunate example that we took down.
That's one of the worst examples I've heard in a long time. But, so maybe on that, Fernando and then Lucas after, this discussion, when do you want the AI to build these workflows, or when do you want a software developer building very predictable software where you know the outcome and it's very A happens to B. So how do you see that balance of when should people actually stop using AI and more focus on descriptive software?
Yeah, I can take that. I think there's a few different heuristics you can apply. Very simple. Can you describe the process that you're going through? Can you write the steps? Or is it something like, I know it when I'll see it? My background is computer vision, robotics. For decades, classifying an image of a cat, being a cat, was an unsolved problem. We couldn't do it. Because you can't really describe the rules for that. It has ears, but it might be fuzzy. LLMs are amazing at that. Given that problem, yes, pattern recognition, they're perfect for that kind of solution. But if you can write out the steps to get to what you need to, then I think writing deterministic software, that's a big part of what Verbal does, is a lot of the workflows we build are rooted in just lines of code. There is a meta question of who's writing those lines of code, and we actually use AI in order to write code that we then test and ship to our customers as products. There's two layers here of abstraction. But I think that a key component is just, one, can you use AI and should you use AI? Can you, is the problem suitable for that? And should you there's many examples of people using AI for email autoresponders, and people just see that AI slop is the term that's in vogue now. And it's a very new thing, but it creates this reaction of just, I don't want to even see this. So there's a human component to consider as well. And even if it is a good tool, is it the right tool?
Should we lower the volume of the speakers?
Not within our
We don't have any control over
Oh,
the guy.
no,
yeah.
The AV guy left.
We have no control. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Is there an AI we can
The guy left and went home. Okay. That's a good segue. Now, yeah, I had actually a couple of good stories on that. We had a one investor that was really interested in funding us, and I asked them when we can meet, and I didn't get a response back. So the round happened really quickly. We closed the round, and then I got an email back a week later that the lady who was responsible for scheduling was out sick. So the whole reason we were not able to work with this VC was because the lady was out sick, and there was nobody to back her up. Anyways, little side story. So I mean, there are ways I wouldn't use AI, right? Authentication, security authentication, very straightforward things. The number one use case for our product with customers is actually that they embed it in their product for their customers. So customer-facing reporting for their customers. It's a white label solution embedded in your product. And one of the things a lot of customers then want is repeatably, I don't know, is that a word? Yes, okay, wow. Repeatably the same outcomes. And that's not great for AI, right? AI is probabilistic. You put something in and something different, slightly different, comes out every single time. So what we did is exactly what you were saying earlier, is once Orion determines that a certain way of doing things is the right way, it actually hard codes the Python code and logs it in the workflow. It does, of course, a couple of review cycles of the code and quality assurance and documentation. But then that's it, it's locked in, right? There are other pieces that Orion still uses AI for, but it makes the call when to replace in its own workflow the AI. And I think that's what we'll see more and more, where AI is also very expensive to run. So when you run a sophisticated analysis through our product, we pay a lot of money to our cloud providers, and being able to make it deterministic lowers our cloud bill tremendously. So I think there are really good ways to log things.
No, that's amazing. So one thing we were discussing also here a couple of weeks ago was the notion of when AI is not a good tool because the customer is wanting empathy. The customer wants to know that there's a person that they're speaking to. So the perfect example was banking. I think most people here, including us on the panel, we want to use an app to make transactions. We want to use an app to see our balances. And that was the thinking in the banking industry. So Wells Fargo and JP Morgan and everyone started cutting down a lot of bank offices. Well, what they discovered was that there's still a lot of people who want to go to a bank, who might have financial problems. They don't just want to fill out a few things on an app. They want to speak to a real human being, who have empathy with the problem, who can help them with credit, whatever that might be. And here are our CEOs or founders, have to go to a bank occasionally to do wire transfers over settlement. And every time I go to a bank, I'm amazed that there are long lines, and there is this part of the population that still wants to speak to a human, even for very simple things like depositing a check or something that I personally use an app for. So my next question is, and Lucas and I usually discuss customer service, so maybe we will touch that, but when do you notice that your customers or your users prefers a human versus an AI? So what have you seen there that maybe that surprised you?
Yeah, and so some of our customers want me to do like these executive offsites to tell about the future of where things are going to go. And everybody's always worried about their kids. So we have a conversation about where the future is going to go, AI, jobs, skills. And I think the greatest superpower anyone can get right now or help your kids get is people skills. I think it's going to be, even with more people being glued to screens and stay at home, much more than we ever used to. Someone who is great with people the future is going to be amazing. We just had 2 of our teams went out to Atlanta last night and met with a customer today to sign a contract. And that thing, like flying out, being there in person, building the relationship, that's different from other AI companies. Like the vast majority of AI companies right now, they would not do that. And I think that's how you sign a large enterprise deal, right? And I think that's even going to be more extreme. So I don't want to give our secret sauce away here, but again, go out there, meet with people, look them in the eyes, right? Because I pay my lawyers a lot of money, and I know they're using AI. I know that, I still give them a lot of money because I want to look them in the eye, and I know that they're accountable, and they're going to do something for me. And sure, they're going to make way too much money right now, but that's okay with me. I can live with it.
For now.
Yeah, I have a couple of examples. I totally agree with what you said. The human connection is really valuable. One of the early use cases of Turtle that we use as like an onboarding was, hey, you can build this email assistant that'll allow you to schedule meetings, and it'll do all look at your calendar, integrate with your other services, and take this off your plate. And it was popular on one side where people who were using this is great, it's going to save them a lot of time. But they observed that on the receiving end, it wasn't the same experience. There's a sense of, they can tell us AI, but it's hard for you to pass that test. And then I think there's a sense of, you didn't spend the time to write this email for me. I wasn't worthy of that sense if you really dive in. And I think that makes a huge difference when someone does write that email, and the contrast exists. So the actual follow-through response rate and just the success of that was, I think, way less than we expected, because on the receiving end, it was just like you delegated me to an AI assistant. And we're at a point where the human touch is actual currency and really valuable. And even though AI, it's a great use case. It's reading unstructured data, it's figuring out what to do. It's amazing from like a technical perspective, but from a human perspective, it's not. And factoring that into when to use it and when not to use it, in the classic, what we do today in many cases, the AI just goes up to the human. It gives me all the information I need to prepare myself to then take that and inject myself with as little effort as possible, hopefully they don't know, and just provide that the link between the two. And that's something that I did not see initially, but became very clear with this example.
Yeah, I actually have to share a personal story where Fernando sent me to this AI agent. God, I hated that agent. And eventually I just texted him and like, okay, we're having dinner at this time.
I tried to review.
But I think a lot of that comes down to expectation also. People get more and more accustomed to speaking to an AI, and more people they see the value of that. I think, Lucas, maybe you want to share a story where you had a problem to fix, and we actually came to an AI and discovered that was much more efficient than a human online would be.
No, I had a little HVAC issue the other day, and I called. I called at 6:30 a.m., right? I woke up, the house was super cold. I called, I was like, no one is going to be there. And but yeah, the AI picked up. I was a little annoyed because there was background noise and everything. It sounded very, but it did say I'm an AI agent, so I did appreciate transparency. But yeah, it was actually really good. It understood me, it got me scheduled, it got me in right away and sent me a confirmation text afterwards. Super smooth. And then the opposite experience, right? I was flying and my United flight got delayed. So I was in the like at the airport trying to talk to United, trying to get things moved. And I got forwarded from one agent to the next, all human, and then they couldn't hear me because I was at the airport, it was loud, and I don't know, it was just so frustrating. I was like, can I just interact with an AI here? It's okay, and I think there are some, look, I actually have huge concerns about the future in AI. I think there are some real problems there, like call centers are a big stepping stone for a lot of developing countries where like in the US in the past, where Nebraska, those where the call centers were, it was a stepping stone for people. Now you have Costa Rica and Philippines, right? And I know like a couple of friends of mine that run these centers for companies, they are getting ready to completely move to AI. So then what's going to happen? And what are the jobs there? So I certainly am concerned with what will happen to the job market, but you can't deny that it can do a really good job.
Yeah. And I think building on that, sorry if causing background noise here. On that note, so all technology changes we've ever come have, of course, destroyed jobs, but they've also created new jobs. And I think one of the questions that as you as product managers or engineers are thinking about how do we launch AI services, you should also be thinking of what type of jobs comes with this. For the defense industry, there's always been this massive aftermarket support industry with these massive companies with tens of thousands of individuals. All they do is go and clean military ships or clear bunkers or fix tanks. And I would love to hear from you too, as people here are thinking through AI services, and maybe some personal examples too about what type of jobs are now being created. I think we were discussing an AI-formed engineer service. Could you please mention some of that and your own experiences?
Yeah, but it depends a lot on the kind of customer, but one role that we didn't anticipate but is very much present is this forward-deployed AI engineer, where think of a non-technical customer, and they're just being flooded with AI tools and solutions left and right. There's a million of them coming out, which is a consequence of everything becoming really accessible today. Coding is easy, producing media is easy. So the volume, like I saw a plot of like number of App Store for the iPhone apps, flatlined for 10 years, and it's just skyrocketing in the last couple of years. So everybody get inundated with this, and their question is, how do I use this stuff? Everything's like self-serve, it scales amazingly, it's a good business model, but what they really want is like the human connection, someone in there showing me, okay, what do I use and how do I use it? I don't want to learn to use a new tool, I just want my problem to be solved effectively. So then this role is this human who's there and bridging the gap between all this technology that exists and the actual problems. Think like some company in Ohio who doesn't care about AI, just wants their problem solved, and they're just seeing all these things. And that's a position that is just is new to this space.
There's an interesting influx of fractional roles, which I think is interesting. So if you have some level of seniority, right, if you understand your domain really well, lawyers is a good example, right? They always have, or for a long time now, been fractional to a lot of companies. But if you are really good at like marketing, right, could you be a fractional CMO? Could you be a fractional COO or like a There's so many things like in my business, like I really need someone to help me with HR stuff. I don't need a full-time person, and maybe now with AI tooling behind a capable person, I could just hire a fractional HR person. But I still want someone I can look into the eyes, right? And that tells me we're doing the right things, we're following the correct processes here. But do I really need to hire like an entire HR team? I hope not. Yeah, it's not being recorded, right?
Are you going to let your AI agent do their quarterly reviews with people?
I have a funny story. Okay, I have a funny story on this. Okay, this is maybe TMI. I don't know. Let's see. So I was managing a really big team at Google, and I'm a very straightforward person. I tell you exactly what I think and what you should do. I'm great with constructive feedback. Not so good with the other kind of feedback. What is it? Positive feedback? Yeah, that one. So I wrote every time in a performance review, I wrote down the 3 things you did well and the 3 things you should do better. And then I told people about it, and then they asked me for the written one. And that was always really disappointing because the written one was the same thing, a little shorter. So then before Gemini really was, I had the internal AI tool at Google was, hey, here are our core values as a company. Here's my 3 bullet points, write a performance review. And man, people were so happy. And it is what I went to say if I had 60 hours to write this, but like I didn't. And anyway, so I felt like a little cheated, but also I'm glad I finally got some on the review that I always wanted and I wanted to be able to give.
So you're saying AI is more personal than the determinist?
Yes. So for certain, it does help me with emails. It tells me now you should say Happy New Year, how are you, all these things I wouldn't have thought. Yeah. It does. So I'm like, I'm a very stereotypical German. So there are Germans who. Anyways, I should stop talking.
Yeah, and
Which is the Brazilian.
yeah, how are Brazilians with AI?
For whatever the AI agents.
Yeah. So the question is, who is accountable? Right? And I get this question a lot. So and I, in some ways, it's a tricky one. Like the Waymo, for example. Right? I drove the Waymo in San Francisco, and it's doing a really good job. It used to be pretty bad, but it's doing a really good job now. And people just step in front of it because they know it's going to stop. And I spill my coffee and everything, and people are really disrespectful to the Waymo because they know it's going to stop. Nobody would do that to a New York taxi driver. Like, you would never step in front of a New York taxi. It's a little unfair, right? Because they know Google is going to be liable and they have a really big liability insurance. But I think everybody in the workforce will be a manager of AI. And so for us as a data analyst, Orion, you will now be a manager of Orions that execute data analytics tasks. But you are responsible. You as a manager, much like a very good manager who writes really good performance reviews, you will actually say, this is not good. You should check over here. This doesn't seem correct. Can you do this again? Right? And you as a manager will be responsible for the output, and you can take the credit for it. Right? I think that's how I would think about it. So I do think there's still going to be humans at the top. Right? I do think there are skills needed for that, where not everybody is suited to be a manager. What does it take to be a good manager? How can you be cognitively aware all day long to very thoroughly read quite sound arguments? And so I do think there might be a change in how we approach work, where it's less about the hours that you work and more about the time that you're very able to pay good attention to the outputs.
I'll let Fender go.
Yeah, I mean, pretty similar. I used to work in self-driving cars, so similar concerns around accountability. 100%. It's easy to say, oh, the AI is accountable. It did that. Too bad. Good luck. Better luck next time. So in the end, it's always a human in the loop. In that case, it makes it really hard. With what we do with Thurble today, it's also like we're the ones who are putting ourselves accountable for something that goes wrong. If we mess up their payroll, or we send out a million emails that we shouldn't send out. So I think having that human in the loop is a key component. Imagine a world in which that's not the case. And it's just, the agent did what it did, and no one's held accountable other than it, and you can tell it did the wrong thing. So you need that component. The question is, how do you enforce that in practice? I think some industries are more regulated than others. I used to work in aerospace, self-driving cars, or when it comes to things like creative media, et cetera, but just you're pumping out images or sounds or videos, then that accountability becomes less regulated. And I think it's more of an open question in those domains.
Yeah, and I'll give you my perspective as well. I worked in medical device for many years. We worked with brain implants. I ran all of US operations and supply chain. So if we have a surgery in New York, we're going to FedEx it. And of course, FedEx makes a mistake. They lose the package. We got a kid on an operating table who's going to get this brain implant. And they have to wake him up and send him home for 2 more days because FedEx wants the package. And at that point, those parents will never call FedEx to complain. They will call us who provided the product and who they ordered from. And I think there's a similar thing with AI where if a customer calls you, you've done the product, and you're saying, oh, sorry, the ChatGPT algorithm is wrong, that's just not going to fly. Because then why did you use them if their algorithm is wrong? So I think my own experience from other industries is that as the end customer or end customer interface, And it will be very hard to pass it on to an AI. It will be very hard to pass it on with the responsibility doesn't lie with as a company. So that would be my advice from a product perspective. And I do want to give one more example on that. That's a bit terrible, so hopefully, I don't trigger anyone here. But in the military space, AI targeting or AI recognition has been really big, where you basically now want this self-autonomous weapon systems go in, target the enemy force, whether that's a vehicle or a human being, and take them out. There's a lot of problems with that. So who owns the data that you train your models on? Who owns the product? Who's to blame when, unfortunately, then an AI will make a miscalculation and kill a civilian? And you see this in Ukraine today in certain areas where you have AI-controlled weapon system or algorithmic weapon system, and an old man bites by and this weapon system thinks that's incompetent, and it engages and it kills old men or women who predominantly the type of geographical states in these war zones who can't move. So the US military doesn't allow AI to shoot and target humans. There's always going to be a human in the loop. But I think what we're seeing in other parts of the world, I want to mention any country specific, but they might be more open to taking out students. And I would just, again, take it back that I think the US approach is the correct one. And it's built on the fact that you can never ever blame an AI, you can never ever blame the model, you can never ever say, we had 10,000 hours of recorded video, have we had 20,000 hours, we did not have done this. So, yeah, not the most cheerful example, that's some of what I think. And I do again want to say from a product perspective, maybe you guys want to comment as well. There is this fine line again, where is, I think you mentioned it, where is AI too expensive? Or where is AI maybe prohibitive? So again, I'll make an example now that you talk about if you have edge devices, running a whole AI model can sometimes be hard and you want to be more prescriptive. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, so the data analysis, data analytics runs on not on edge devices, it runs on the most expensive hardware you can have. And we run multiple cycles. So when Orion says, what are the earnings of this, and here's the numbers, here's underlying facts that support why there was a drop or why there wasn't a drop, we actually run that multiple times through multiple different AIs. And then another AI reviews the work across all three to see if they all come to the same conclusion. So there's multiple cycles of review coming on, right? Because yes, a person should be responsible, but we also have to assume that no person will be in the loop. So we have to build it in a way that it is as accurate as possible. I do think we have done testing on human analysts versus Orion. We stopped that about a year ago because there was no way that our human group was able to perform at the same level. So there were just so many mistakes being made by human analysts. And so that's interesting to see. I do think it's interesting that we never really looked at what's a great analyst across many different companies. Like analysts make mistakes all the time, and okay, Eric, next time you shouldn't do this anymore. It never comes out, right? It's never been documented. Or who's a good lawyer? What is a good contract, right? It's really hard to measure those things. And so now with AI, we actually, for the first time in some of these industries, actually quantify what good looks like and try to really put a benchmark in place. I think that's quite interesting.
I think when you mentioned the key component, how do you define what is good? That's essentially what defines if you can use AI or not in the broader sense. Can you look at the output and say this is good, this is not good, objectively? Or is it like, I don't know, the guy said it, so it's probably good. If you're in that camp, then you probably shouldn't be using AI. But if you can, like you say, I have some internal knowledge of what a good lawyer is, and AI is doing this analysis for me, I'm like, okay, this is good, then you can use that as a metric to improve your system. You have some baseline to compare it against. That's not just, you need some external source of truth. There's a lot of systems that are just like AI models, checking AI models, and it's a little bit of the blind leading the blind, I found sometimes. If you don't have a little bit of external signals that are brought in from like human experts, or from AI that's been validated by human experts that can use to actually ground that cycle. Otherwise it can, similar to your council that you mentioned at the beginning of AI, talking to each other, some way of grounding that so that you have some objective metrics around what's right or not.
Excellent. I think it was a question back here.
Let me just try it. I'll shield it from the speaker. How's that? Okay. Still a little feedback, but we'll move forward. My question is a little tangential, but still relevant around AI, I guess, labeling as we're like evolving within AI and we're having more videos. I listened to the New York Times Daily, listened to last weekend's podcast if anybody's interested on AI in Hollywood and how movies are just being completely AI generated from forward to back. And what are your thoughts around disclosure? And then while you guys were talking about, oh, with this AI grounding, if there may be some relevancy to having labeling that's all AI, AI hybrid, for lack of a better word, and some kind of...
It's also been suggested that we start labeling real. That would be the easier thing to do. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think there were two questions there. I think you said one thing was how do we disclose if it's AI, like how do we disclose if would AI win best movie at the Oscars? And I think the second thing was there about labeling stuff. But Fernando, maybe you can take it.
Yeah, that's, if you can solve that problem, you have the next billion-dollar company right there. That's an open problem. One, I think today, I forget the name of the company, which was against their marketing, but some company whose whole thing was like detecting fraud in AI, detecting things that are AI generated. And there's this famous NeurIPS, it's a very popular machine learning conference, one of the biggest ones, and it like, they're getting headlines because they found like 100 papers that were submitted where actually had AI hallucinations in them. And that's what their product does. It goes in and finds these things. So that's very much an open area of development, and it's not straightforward to just label training data and make that way through so that the output of the model is something that you can trace back and say, oh, this 100% was AI generated. There's lots of startups doing things along those lines of trying to like watermark AI outputs, and then other ones trying to unwatermark it, and it's a bit of a cat and mouse game. So it's very much an open problem, but it's, yeah.
Yeah, does it matter? I think there is is it important that we are able to tell apart AI or not? I think that's I don't know, because I'm not a big fan of social media. I'm not a big fan of influencers, for example. I think they're living a fake life, and they're trying they get others to believe that it's a real life and all they do bad about themselves. So I wish there was a world where it was full of AI influencers, so there are no more influencers because they can't make any money anymore with that. And I think my wish will become true. And is that bad? I don't know. Okay, sorry, the microphone situation. They are, every time you build a wall, someone builds a ladder that goes higher. Like I needed some imagery and I asked ChatGPT to create it for me, and then I uploaded it to LinkedIn, and LinkedIn put a warning on top, okay, this is AI generated because there are watermarks in there. And I asked ChatGPT what I should do about that, and ChatGPT said, just take a screenshot. And that worked. I took a screenshot, I uploaded it, and no more problems. So I don't know, every time you build something and so then the question becomes like, why does it matter? Does it matter so that Brad Pitt keeps making $50 million a year? Is that why we should do it? I don't know.
I think there's a little bit of trust. If you like put yourself in some dystopian world where you don't know if anything is AI generated or not. Like the basic fabric of society is trust. You don't know if some video you're seeing, where did it come from? Is it real or not? Can you believe it? You won't believe anything anyone sends you. You'll believe your own beliefs, and that's it. And you just reinforce that. And anything that comes externally, you're like, no, that's AI. We're already in that world, right? That's kind of where we...
But maybe then we go back to just listening to respected sources instead of listening to random stuff we find online.
Yeah, I can open suggestions on that one.
What's respected? That's going to be the next argument. What's respected?
Yeah.
For Fernando, compare what you just said to fast forward 50 years from now, and right now we'll say, did we disclose when we used calculators 50 years ago or 100 years ago? I use a calculator in my job. Like 50 years from now, will this have been an issue? It's just technology.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say
Can you
that...
repeat the question?
Is this like calculators in the sense that, correct me if I'm wrong here, but in the past we used to do math ourselves, and calculators, technology came around, everybody uses calculators, no one questions it today. But I'd say calculators are grounded, I like that word a lot, use it a lot, in the sense that 1 + 1 is 2, and it's grounded in how physics, how the world works. I struggle to connect the dots and then do like, oh, you see this video of someone doing something that maybe makes you not like them, but you have no idea if it's true or not. That's this technology being used potentially. Or you hear someone's voice, right? The voice is amazing. AI voice is phenomenal. Can recreate voices like uncannily well. So you can hear a recording, but you won't know if it's real or not. I feel like if that's the world we live in, maybe there is a world in which that kind of like things work out. But I struggle to connect the dots and make that be one where we can actually function as a society.
I think we're just going to have to pass this on. So I want to go back to what you said about genuinity. So I think I'm less of an engineer than these two, so I do actually care about things like that. I don't care about Brad Pitt's salary, but I do care that I don't have to see another 50th Marvel movie with the exact same AI script. And I think there's something to what you were saying too here about, maybe I'll take a step back and say, so we are all founded companies. We consider ourselves being disruptive, I think. And AI is really good in learning on data sets, learning on labeling, or learning on things that exist, and then apply that. But I personally, and feel free to debate this with me, think that AI sometimes maybe struggles to be disruptive in the way that a Galileo was disruptive in the 15th century, or Christopher Columbus, or even an Elon Musk might be. So I do think that there's still if you're looking at movies or looking at anything like that, there's still a level of creativity that at least I haven't seen in AI that's not built on labeling data. And again, I know you mentioned that, but very quickly on the military side again, AI has been really good now in recognizing camouflage patterns. So if you think about a military guy, he's probably wearing a camouflage and walking around. So now what's happening in Russia is that they're basically taking styrofoam and painting it like bricks and just taping it all over the cars, all over the tanks, all over their bunkers. And now AI cannot recognize that. So now you're going to go back, relabel your data set, and now you're going to start saying, hey, we're going to start looking for bricks. Well, the problem is all those cities are blown up, so there's bricks everywhere. And so you just end up in this, if you want to be disruptive, you just end up in a cycle. So would love to hear if you disagree, but AI would be great at making the same movie that you've already seen 10 times, but AI might not write the movie that you see and are mind blown, but this fantastic story you could never imagine.
Let's see.
Okay. Okay.
That's one. Nice. Look at that. Yeah. No, I want to second that. I think AI is going to create exactly right, like next season of Law and Order, because there's enough training data on Law and Order there. But yeah, it won't create a net new, super interesting. So there's a Law and Order fan. Okay. No, but yeah, the super interesting new thing, right? Like the next book that is really okay. I really didn't think about this before, right? I think that is the human trait, and I think that's why I'm not so worried about distinguishing AI from non-AI, is because I do think the novel idea, the out-of-the-box thinking, that will be human. The art that is really, truly different, I think that will be human.
My co-founder lives in Los Angeles, so he's very tapped into the Hollywood ecosystem. I am not, but what I hear from him is the uses of AI in media are absolutely mind-blowing. So I don't know if I agree with it won't create the next movie that you really love, the next script that you'll, because you know how snack companies, Doritos, optimize for the human, like what we like in terms of texture, taste, the salty, the crunchy, and it just hits right. That's something I can be really good at. Figure out, we're just humans, and it can figure out with the infinite data what makes us really enjoy, what makes like that dopamine hit, like a drug. And it can produce a movie then that taps into those notes in a way that's really hard for a human person to do. Because that's the advantage of AI. And you can see that a little bit with music as well. A lot of music created AI that's honestly really good. And you're like, oh, it's music, it's AI, and you kind of downgrade it in your brain because AI generated it. But until that point, you're like, this is nice. So I do think that there is a lot coming down the road when it comes to media generation and AI that maybe it won't be super meaningful and deep and will make you think about life differently, but it will make you happy and it will make you enjoy it and you want to watch it again.
Right here, we
I
got.
say this back to you. The incentives are misaligned perhaps between the LLM providers and us as developers and solution providers.
And that's why you're a founder. Well done.
Thank you. Specifically speaking, like they're incentivized to not be that accurate or drive engagement. So the answer that seemed good, they passed the sniff test, the ability gap. You see something, yeah, that looks good. Every LLM response passes this test essentially. But you dive into the minutia, it's not that good. And it's a great question. I don't have a universal answer. It's something we struggle with a lot. In our case, we mostly use these foundational models in order to write code. That code needs to execute and do things in the real world. And then we can use what we expect that code to do as the guardrails. So the LLM code writes code, maybe it's wrong, but we then run that, we validate it statically. We have like extensive line by line unit tests that we run against it, and we check against what is this actually doing, and we feed it back in. So this is like the guardrails around it that make sure that we iterate until it does what we need it to do, versus a harder scenario is answer a question for me. It's just there's no way for you to go and add this hard boundary around it, which I think in your case is a harder problem, perhaps, because if it's data analytics, it could be something, some trend, but then how do you prevent that from being hallucinated, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, I had the early examples of the AIs getting all excited about the board meeting. That's a good one where they just keep going, right? The LLMs want you to consume more tokens, so they suggest better board meetings, bigger slides, right? All these things. Yeah, so we had to put guardrails in place, but it was not that hard. Like but it's a sophisticated agent now not a multi-agent system. So 60 agents working together. There's these manager groups in the control, like how many iterations we do. So there's pretty clear guidance on when to stop. But yes, the default is to suggest more and I think also not to check too hard if it's accurate, right? That's a big part of our value prop is that we check everything for accuracy before it goes out.
And I'll tell you a story and I'll give you my perspective. One of my buddies back in Europe works with AI, and they have a customer, and the customer one day contacts them and says, our whole confidential, they're a public company, our whole confidential quarterly report was released on Reddit a week before we went public on the stock market to give this news. And we've followed it and we've traced it. And we've traced it to one of our own employees, taking the whole quarterly report, updating it into a public LLM, running queries on it, and suddenly that data, I don't know the details, nor do I want to know the details, was intercepted from the LLMs, and basically someone was able to download that and were able to publish that. And I think his perspective, again, he works in AI, I don't as much as he general, but his perspective is that a lot of internal companies won't have the discipline to handle LLMs, won't have the legal ramifications, like you both spoke about guardrails. I don't think not want to speak poorly here, but a mom and pop shop who maybe have a store on Pearl Street Boulder or someone selling socks have that discipline. So I think that there's going to be, I know I'm not allowed to make predictions, but I still think that companies are going to have more and more examples where the use of LLMs is for data mining or pattern recognition. It's not that great, and they're going to be forced to go either to a fractional service provider who can help them with that, or figure out new ways of doing it. And currently now, a lot of people, bad actors around the world, are focusing on intercepting questions in and out of LLMs. And there's also a lot of bad actors who are building their own LLMs, making it open source, putting it out there, that people download, use, and they don't understand that there are backdoors to those LLMs that people can access. And so I do get this LLM push that they want to own it all, they want to do data mining or analytics, but I struggle to see, and I think there's too many bad actors and too many bad processes people are using for that to be fully disruptive. Hopefully I answered your question.
Great, thank you.
I just wanted to ask, like, how do you push back?
Never mind. If the leadership wants an AI story, but the solution can be a simpler one. And adding on to that, has it ever happened if the system is looking perfectly fine in the metrics, but something fails that you had to rethink the usage of AI?
I'm happy to go first. So again, I'll give you the maybe a defense aspect of that. So a lot of people are asking for very advanced ways of driving autonomously, either in roads or in warehouses or whatever. And in one of those cases that I've seen, I had a battle with one of my bosses, actually, back to your question, who wanted that every time the robot was running in a warehouse got stopped, we should ask ChatGPT what the best path forward was. And I said, A, you are nuts. B, I think you misunderstand ChatGPT. And C, an algorithm here is much better. Basically, look at LiDAR data or sensor data and determine, okay, if we drive here, it's open, so let's try that out. And to your point, that person didn't understand the cost of ChatGPT. We were speaking about hidden cost and tokens and stuff. But also didn't understand the latency issue. And a lot in my business is edge computing. You don't want to send signals. You don't want to disclose what type of data you're sending, from which location you're sending the data. And I would love to hear a good answer because I'm battling this too. So totally respect the question. But yeah, for me, it was the way I got around it, showing the cost in latency, how long will the robot just standing still before it can actually do anything. And also how expensive would this be? Like how much of the bandwidth of a old warehouse that had 2005 Wi-Fi, and now we're going to start doing ChatGPT. Probably not the best.
Yeah, I have a lot of examples there. I'll keep it brief. A lot of people that come to us are operational people in company who have a top level directive of use AI. That's it. Good luck. Use AI, become more productive. Everybody's using it, you gotta be using it too. And to your point, in many cases that doesn't need to be used. It's not the right tool for the job. It's a shill for my company here, but they use Durable, in this case, to automate some CRM, some sales process, etc. Durable produces a fully deterministic software that's doing like when this happens. So it's not like what they're actually implementing in their business isn't AI. It was AI generated. They use Durable to produce it. So they are using AI and check that box. Hey, we're using Durable, this AI platform on our website. But the actual solution it implements isn't an agent who's doing subjectively looking at your payroll and figuring out how much Bob is going to get paid tomorrow. It's something deterministic. So that's because there's no convincing these people that they don't need to use AI. I think that's a lost cause. The question is, get the best of both worlds. That's it. Sorry. And one other thing, I think that there's an interesting thing in robotics. It's like recently, just to your point earlier, reminded me of that, like vision action language models essentially that enable manipulation is essentially plugging sensor data into ChatGPT. If you zoom out a lot, that's what it's doing. And it's all the rage in robotics currently. It's enabling all these humanoid robotics companies and et cetera are essentially doing that. So it's coming for the deterministic algorithms as well.
I don't know if that's a good answer for you. We are getting a lot of pushback in our field. Like we are working on the data teams, and there's a lot of AI is never going to be as good as a human analyst, which I don't think that's accurate. I think we should take a closer look at how good your human analysts are. No, they are very good human analysts. I've met some fantastic analysts. It's just they're rare to find. That's all. Yeah.
So I think we'll skip questions and we'll go into a lightning round. So we'll ask some quick questions and then I think we'll break. But we'll be around, we'll having plenty of seltzers and other things here. So please come and find us. But very quick lightning round, just quick answers.
Okay.
Quick answers. Number one.
Appreciate the feedback.
What is an AI use case you refuse to build?
I'm going to steal the answer I thought he was going to give, which is the social media content creation.
No, actually.
That's what you want to do because you put him out of business. So I refuse to do that, and he'll do it instead. With that one for sure. Yeah.
Let's say I have to think about that. Yeah. That's AI thing I refuse to build. There's a lot of companies, so in the data space, right, a lot of companies want, hey, can you build an AI that handles all data mess and has is the architecture, the foundation of everything, and I don't think that's a good use of AI. I think there should be a human who makes the decision on what's the definition of everything, and then we put AI on top of that as a source of truth. I don't think you should have AI make the decision on what it all is underneath.
No, perfect. And then maybe I'll do the mirror question of that. What is a AI feature you're dying to build that you haven't built yet?
AV guy.
Oh, what's that?
The AI AV guy. AV.
Oh yeah, that would be great, yeah. Just have a nice, the feature I'm trying to build, yeah. So right now, okay, I like stories, as you can tell. So I want our AI to be able to tell you the story of the data. So right now, the number one way people usually consume data is through slide decks. And slide decks, come on, like we can take it further. Like, why don't I have it tell you the story of what's happening here? And there's some good attempts with podcasts and whatnot, but I think that would be really cool to have that on your way to work, tell you, hey, this is what's happening, this is what you should pay attention to today. You have this meeting coming up, tell them you need to visit, there's an upsell opportunity or whatever it might be.
There's a long list, but one thing that's been on my mind lately is real estate. Honestly, separate durable, maybe durable doesn't work out, that'll happen, but I think there's more opportunity there in just making that whole process just be AI driven. That's the use case that I think I would love to build.
Yeah, I have to say, lawyers, if I could just have an AI agent doing what they're doing. They're getting there, yeah. What is the most overrated AI function on any AI product out there, including your own?
Sorry, I was still stuck on the lawyers. I was thinking about that. So my dream is that we can have all legal disputes in front of this massive AI, and we just say, hey, this is what I think, here's what you think. Neither of us has to hire a lawyer because it just argues the case on both sides. And then that would be great because it has been always who can hire a more expensive lawyer and is willing to spend more money on it. And that's ridiculous. That should be just who's right and who's wrong. And I don't think you need to have lawyers for it. You could have just anyways. Sorry. Give me the question again.
Yeah, perfect lightning round. That's the most, maybe if I'll begin with you, sorry, the most overrated AI product, any category, any product out there.
Overrated. Think about that for a little bit. Well, voice assistants came to mind, but I don't think they're overrated. Everybody hates them. Yeah. I think this is changing, but AI image generation is very like a really huge hype, but everybody can tell AI generated still. So it's not as really moving the needle as AI coding or things like that, so as disruptive as it may have seemed, but yeah.
I'll give my quick answer there. I agree with you on videos. My mom is sending me these cat videos and stuff about the crazy stuff cat do. Clearly it's AI generated. She's still to crack that nut. So I would forbid cat AI videos. Thankfully true. And maybe the question is, what is, apart from your own companies, what's the absolute best AI product out there that you would recommend people to use?
Okay, is it easy?
I'm very biased, but like coding assistants, like Quad Code, Cursor, Picker, use Quad Code a lot. I think is one of the few truly disruptive uses of AI so far. It's like completely transformed the field. So for sure.
Yeah, second that, I mean, I hired some very reluctant Google engineers who were like, I'm not going to use AI, I'm going to code everything myself, and Claude Code, yeah, it did it, and now they're all in. Yeah, that's the one.
Excellent. Thank you so much.